Next topic is the topic of urban sprawl. So यहाँ पर what we find that we have seen that urbanization is a very dynamic process. Cities continue to grow as the size of the cities continue to grow, population of the cities continues to grow, the cities are continuing to grow. The physical expansion of the city is what we call it as the phenomena of urban sprawl. Okay, the physical expansion of the city is referred to as the urban sprawl. So the term urban sprawl describes the physical pattern of low density expansion of large urban areas into the surrounding countryside. And commonly this sprawl is little planned. Generally we find that such a sprawl is little planned. अब sprawl के लिए जल्दी से बात कर लें. It is easy topic. So when we are talking about urban sprawl, there are two type of sprawls which can occur. हमने already देखा है vertical and horizontal. Vertical कहाँ पर ज़्यादा देखा गया? Where urbanization is more concentrated, like in coastal areas, etc. More specifically, such was very important case of American. This is also referred to as American type of sprawl. Horizontal sprawl is a universal phenomena. It is more universal phenomena, which is occurring everywhere, in all parts of the world. ठीक है. अब मुझे हॉरिजॉन्टल स्प्रॉल के बारे में बात करना है, तो आई विल बी फाइंडिंग, मटेरियल में दिया हुआ है, यहाँ पर लिखा हुआ है सिटीज, विच टाइप ऑफ सिटीज हैव एक्सपीरियंस मोर अर्बन स्प्रॉल, इंडस्ट्रियल कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स, प्राइमेट कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स एंड कोस्टल लोकेशंस एंड नेचुरल हार्बर्स. 3 टाइप ऑफ सिटीज हैव एक्सपीरियंस्ड greater amount of physical sprawl. Causes of sprawl: population growth, नंबर ऑफ फैक्टर्स देखे हमने, नेचुरल ग्रोथ, इमाइग्रेशन, डेवलपमेंट ऑफ ट्रांसपोर्टेशन आर्टरीज, स्ट्रॉन्ग इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ ऑफ द सिटीज, वाइट फ्लाइट जो भी हमने देखा था. सेवरल फैक्टर्स आर देयर रीजंस फॉर द स्प्रॉल. नाउ देयर आर मेनी फॉर्म्स ऑफ स्प्रॉल. लो डेंसिटी स्प्रॉल, रिबन स्प्रॉल एंड लीप फ्रॉग स्प्रॉल. 3 टाइप ऑफ स्प्रॉल्स कैन बी सीन. अब इनके लिए दिस इज द लो डेंसिटी स्प्रॉल. सो लो डेंसिटी स्प्रॉल, दिस इज द हाई डेंसिटी, दिस इज द मेन सिटी. ठीक है. सो हियर इफ यू लुक इनटू, दिस इज एसेंशियली द सिटी, मेन सिटी एरिया. This is the main city area, and if we look into this main city area, what we will be finding, the city is expanding on its outskirts. So this expansion of the city in all the directions, low density expansion, it is essentially what? It is referred to as the low density sprawl. It is again what? A very universal phenomena which occurs. ठीक है. सो ये बहुत इजी है. लो डेंसिटी स्प्रॉल, 3 गोले बनाने हैं बस, हाई, मॉडरेट और लो. Then there is ribbon sprawl. So ribbon sprawl is occurring where? It is occurring towards transportation routes. So जिधर transportation routes हैं, there you can see this is essentially the ribbon sprawls which are occurring. So cities grow more towards where there is transportation lines. So this type of sprawling of the cities is referred to as the ribbon sprawl. Ribbon sprawl. ठीक है. So that is one type of sprawl which is seen. जरूरी नहीं कि ऐसा ही शेप एग्जैक्टली बने, वो तो रैंडम मैंने बना दिया बस. You just have to remember the concept. The more personalized your diagram, better marks you will get. And third is the case of leapfrogging sprawl. Leapfrog sprawl. So can you see, this is the main high density sprawl which has occurred. Here ribbon भी है, low density sprawl भी दिखाई पड़ रहा है. This is the leapfrog. So this leapfrogging में can you see what has happened with the enclaves, intervening space between? Can I say it is jumping like a frog, leaving behind agricultural enclaves in the intermediate place. So this type of sprawl is referred to as the leapfrogging sprawl. ठीक है, अब इसको पढ़ने के बाद कुछ धुंधला धुंधला सा याद आया? क्या हम इसको पहले भी पढ़ चुके हैं? अर्बन मॉर्फोलॉजी मॉडल्स में हमने क्या पढ़ा था? इसी के बारे में पढ़ा था. सो फर्स्ट जो लो डेंसिटी स्प्रॉल है, दैट इज कंसेंट्रिक जोन डेवलपमेंट. So Burgess was essentially concentrating on what? He was trying to explain a type of sprawl of the city which was low density sprawl. ठीक है, यही कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स हमने क्या देखे थे जो यहां पर हम देख रहे हैं? क्या मैं कह सकता हूं यही कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स हमने देखे थे सिटीज में? इंडिया की सिटीज की मॉर्फोलॉजी जब पढ़ रहे थे, बाजार बेस्ड मॉडल में भी ऐसा ही कैरेक्टरिस्टिक था, दिल्ली में भी ऐसा ही कैरेक्टरिस्टिक था, हमें दिखा था, याद है? So again it is what? It is an example of low density sprawl. So मुझे और एग्जाम्पल उसको एक्सप्लेन करना है इसमें, तो मैं उसको रिलेट कर सकता हूं बर्गीज मॉडल के साथ. This is essentially what? Sectoral. Sectoral model was talking about expansion of the city along the transportation arteries. It would take a different form. So there is, this is similar to sectoral model. Can I say ये multiple nuclei model के जैसा है? पहले कुछ न्यूक्लियाइज बन गए, these would become the towns. Initially ये privatized developments होंगे. Later, as the low density sprawl also reaches, they would merge. They would have already established, maybe as nuclei, and there would be very high chance that they can become a multiple nuclei. ठीक है? So third type of sprawl gives rise to multiple nuclei pattern. Multiple nuclei pattern. So this is basically the phenomena of sprawl, और कुछ भी नहीं है इसमें. Now, if I ask you, you tell me which type of cities in India are experiencing this phenomena of urban sprawl? Can I say अभी पढ़ा था हमने metropolitan cities, whose growth was faster? It was metropolitan cities whose growth is very very fast. It is also seen, although weak, in class 1 cities of India. ठीक है, अगर temporal manners में देखें तो can I say the phenomena of urban sprawl would have been very weak before independence? Can we say that? What has happened after independence? It has accelerated. Acceleration में भी दो phases होंगी, before 1991 and after 1991. Before 1991 it was moderate, after 1991 it is very fast. ठीक है? So that is other thing that I can talk about the sprawl. और भी मुझे creativity दिखाना है तो एक इंडिया का मैप बना करके दिखा दिया which are the cities, particularly metropolitan cities, which are experiencing this phenomena of urban sprawl. Can I say और भी कुछ phenomena हमें दिखाई पड़ रहे हैं, particularly 73rd 74th Amendment Act के बाद. Can I say municipalities have got more resources, they have got more powers. So can I say there is now also other factors like resources are also present in the form of capital from real estate. It has also become more aggressive. So can I say with the collusion of municipalities and real estate, there is now fast sprawl taking place. Leapfrogging is very, very common type of sprawl which is also taking place. But there is also a phenomena which is emergence of planned sprawls in India. हो रहा है? Many parts like Greater Noida is what? It is an emergence of a planned sprawl of the city. Okay, so this is a new phenomena which we are very clearly seeing as our principles of urbanizations have changed. Now we recognize that cities are dynamic entities, we have to pre-plan them. So particularly where the cities have progressive planning to be present, where they have future plans like the master plan of Delhi NCR. So again, in such areas what is being done, many of the sprawl areas are already being planned. Okay? So this is new emergence. Why we are planning now? Because very clearly हमने कुछ problems देखे होंगे. ठीक है, इसमें सब लिखा हुआ है. Consequences of sprawl. Because majority of sprawl is what? It is unplanned. So उसके कुछ economic impacts होंगे, include higher cost of providing infrastructure, including adverse fiscal impact on the government. Moreover, it leads to land development patterns which make it difficult to establish and use mass transit systems. So you can understand, if it is ribbon sprawling, if it is low density sprawling, can I say difficult होगा वहाँ पर metro को लेकर के जाना. ठीक है. So again, there is huge economic impact, environmental impact. They are sprawling in the agricultural areas, natural areas like Mumbai में, the destruction of mangroves which occurred. ठीक है. So many of these sprawls are basically having their environmental impacts. Administrative problems also. Who are living in these sprawl areas? City dwellers. But these would be coming under jurisdiction of the district. ठीक है. So there is a district planning committee and there is municipalities. Both are different. So it would be coming under the jurisdiction of the district. Jila Panchayat basically. So again, because it is a rural area, so can I say it would create administrative problems? It is essentially going to create administrative problems. Much of this growth is also which type? Very poor slum type growths have also taken place. Several other issues are being formed. Also और भी problems होते हैं, जैसे यहाँ पर जो लोग जा रहे हैं, majority of them are actually rich people who are going in such type of areas. अब वहाँ पर rich enclaves बन गए. तो जो locals होंगे उनको देख के जलन होगी, इतने rich लोग हैं. So there would be a kind of inferiority complex which can have social implications. Crimes, etc. These are very common problems which can arise against such population. ठीक है. So this is however one of the aspects. Positive इसका क्या है implications? It relieving the pressure from the core of the city and burden of overpopulation. Reduced social tensions भी हो रहे हैं due to migration of rich people in the outskirts. It leads to reduction in the gap between rich and poor in the main city, along with social gaps between the two. It also helps in providing housing opportunities to the sections of population including slum dwellers. ठीक है. Recent times में immigrant जो migrants हैं, minorities, etc. they are also settling on these suburbs. Unfortunately, you see, last few days, so much out migration of minorities are taking place from the northeast Delhi region. Very, very pathetic it is. Okay. So this is one topic, the topic of urban sprawl. अब एक और है rural urban fringe, इसको भी देख लेते हैं. So नाम से ही पता चलता है rural urban fringe क्या है. It refers to a zone or frontier of discontinuity between the city and the countryside in which rural and urban land uses are found intermixed. ठीक है. एक ट्रांजिशन जोन है. इट इज एसेंशियली व्हाट? इट इज अ ट्रांजिशन जोन. ठीक है. सो हम हमने बात किया अर्बन स्प्रॉल का. अर्बन स्प्रॉल इज टेकिंग प्लेस वेयर? in the surrounding agricultural landscape it is taking place. So this surrounding agricultural landscape क्या एक दिन में urbanize हो जाता है? It is not. It takes quite of a time for it to convert into a full urbanized landscape. So the time which is there in which it is more of a mixed, displays more of a mixed characteristics. It is still rural, but it is there. It has several characteristics of urban. So that for that time period, that fringe would be referred to as the rural urban fringe. ठीक है? It would essentially be referred to as the rural urban fringe. ठीक है? The fringe is defined in relation to city and exists in agricultural hinterland where land use is changing from rural to urban use. So it is what? It is a dynamic area which is changing. अब इसके स्ट्रक्चर की बात करें, so suppose this is the city, main city which is there. Surrounding this city would be, this is your rural urban fringe. It is the rural urban fringe. Then there is this urban shadow. So यहाँ पर अगर हम देखें तो this is essentially called the main city. This is the main city. Surrounding this main city lies the rural urban fringe, RUF. अब इस रूरल अर्बन फ्रिंज में भी दो पार्ट्स होते हैं. There are two parts in this rural urban fringe. Part 1 and part 2. Part 1 and part 2. So if you talk about 1 is here what? Essentially 1 is the inner or urban fringe. While second, if you talk about, is the outer or rural fringe. Outer or the rural fringe. ठीक है? Here lies, this area is the urban shadow zone. It is essentially the urban shadow zone. ठीक है, इसके बाहर भी एक खुद जोन होता है, अगर बनाना चाहते हो तो बना सकते हो. Here even a bigger zone you can define. This is, we can say, it is the all this is, we can call it as the commuter zone. This is referred to as the, this whole or fringe से लेकर के out of this area, it is the commuter zone. इसको एक और नाम देते हैं, it is also referred to as the daily urban system. डेली अर्बन सिस्टम. ठीक है, इसमें हमें कुछ और भी चीजें मिलती हैं, जैसे इट इज कॉमन टू फाइंड फ्यू हियर एंड देयर सम टाउन्स टू बी लोकेटेड. ठीक है, सो ये रेड वाले एक टाउन्स हो गए एंड दिस येलो. some towns can be found here and there. So this yellow one and this red one. So this yellow one is referred to as the outer ring towns, and there would be presence of red one says the inner ring towns. Inner ring towns. So this is the structure of the rural urban fringe. ठीक है? So अब यहाँ पर देख लेते हैं, मेन सिटी है. So city is the main built up area which is there. Now this city is expanding in the surroundings, and this expansion has created the rural urban fringe which is the transition zone. अब rural urban fringe के दो parts हैं, inner या urban fringe and the outer or the rural fringe. So inner fringe is basically that area where the land use is changing. ठीक है? Where the land use is changing. It is that area where there is change in the land use taking place. उसमें लिखा हुआ है material में, but I am just telling where the land use is essentially changing. That means rural land use is giving way to urban land use. People would be leaving agriculture. These lands would be bought, and new townships are being developed. New colonies are being developed. So essentially it is what? It is such type of area. That means urbanization is quite visible. The growth of urbanization in the inner ring or inner fringe or urban fringe is what? It is quite visible. इसीलिए हम इसको क्या बोल रहे हैं? अर्बन फ्रिंज. क्योंकि लैंड यूज पैटर्न अब स्लोली अर्बनाइजेशन के लैंड यूज पैटर्न दिखने लगे हैं इसमें. ठीक है? सो दैट इज बेसिकली व्हाट? दैट इज अर्बन फ्रिंज. आउटर रूरल फ्रिंज, आउटर और द रूरल फ्रिंज, इट इज बेसिकली व्हाट? नाम से ही पता चला, रूरल. दैट मीन्स स्टिल द लैंड यूज इज व्हाट? इट इज रूरल. बट व्हाई वी आर कॉलिंग इट एज फ्रिंज? Because of the cultural impact of the city would be visible. ठीक है? अब यहां पर लोगों के कल्चर चेंज होने लगे धीरे धीरे. पहले people were not giving so much importance to education. Now they would also give importance to education. Before people were not using so many consumer products. ठीक है? So ब्रश करना था तो दातुन यूज कर लेते थे. But now they are also using toothbrush, toothpaste. So what is happening? Now the cultural impact of the city is visible. TVs make their way, several things, consumer products are making their way here. People are starting to think differently. So that is basically what? That is the outer or the rural fringe. Urban shadow हमने देख लिया. It is a zone where the impact of the city is so much that it is not allowing much urbanization to grow. Although some small towns can be found. These small towns are referred to as the inner ring towns. Out of that is the daily urban system, which is a uniform, uninterrupted agricultural landscape mostly. And people are commuting. Here, it is essentially referred to as the commuter zone, up to the commuter zone. Daily commutation is taking place. Even one or two, it would be included under this commuter zone or daily urban system. So that is basically the structure of the rural urban fringe. A very important thing is we'll better understand this phenomena if we understand the stages of growth of rural urban fringe. तो ये सब लिखा हुआ है इसमें, अर्बन फ्रिंज, रूरल आउटर फ्रिंज, अर्बन शैडो, वो सभी लिखा हुआ है. स्टेजेस ऑफ ग्रोथ नहीं लिखा हुआ है तो उसको हम फटाफट करते हैं. So development of rural urban fringe passes through the following stages. Development of the rural urban fringe passes through the following stages. First stage is the rural stage. first stage is the rural stage. Second stage is the stage of agricultural land use change. Stage of agricultural land use change. Third is the stage of occupational change. Stage of occupational change. Fourth, stage of urban land use growth. And the fifth one is urban village stage. Urban village stage. So essentially there are 5 stages through which it is passing through. अब एक एक करके बात करते हैं. रूरल स्टेज. सो रूरल स्टेज कब होगा? Essentially rural stage is when the village is located far away, still far away from the city. Far away from the city. That means it is located where? It is located in the urban shadow or the commuter zone. In the urban shadow or beyond it. ठीक है? So that means because of the distance it is not much affected by the presence of city. Because of distance it is not much affected by the presence of city. In particular यहाँ पर क्या होता है? There is no daily movement with respect to employment or sale of farm products. But occasional movements do occur. Occasional visits to the city do occur for special purposes like medical, purchase of expensive clothes, associated with marriages, purchase of agricultural implements, etc. ठीक है? So in this stage, the village is basically what? It is largely rural. Thus the village is still largely rural. ठीक है? तो हम किस बेसिस पे मेनली डिफाइन कर रहे हैं उसको? That it is still not the rural urban fringe creation. We are defining it on the basis of daily interaction. एक भी ऐसा आदमी नहीं है जो रोज आता जाता है. ठीक है? Daily some people would be coming because it is part of the commuter zone, but same person is not coming daily. Like there is no milkman daily coming. ठीक है? Or some person who is doing some job. Such type of people are absent now. ठीक है? So that is the first stage, rural stage. इस समय it is not part of the fringe. Then comes the second stage, stage of agricultural land use change. Agricultural land use change. So in the stage of agricultural land use change क्या होगा? Now when city is expanding, and city has come near to the village. With expansion, the city has, with the physical sprawl, the distance between city and the village has reduced. City and the village has reduced. This can also be result of what? Can I say development of transportation network? Because distance is not absolute. It should be more measured in terms of travel time. So overall distance between the village and the city has reduced, whether in terms of absolute distance or whether in terms of travel time. Now with this, what will happen? There would be more frequent visits into the city of the village people. More frequent visits into the city of the village people. And soon what will happen? They would realize of the city being market for certain products. City being the market for certain products. And which are these products? The milk, market gardening products, like fruits, vegetables, flowers, milk. There is huge demand in the city for such products. So what will happen? Village folks would realize this opportunity and they would start giving up grain farming. So village folks would start giving up grain farming in favor of market gardening. Giving up grain farming in favor of market gardening. ठीक है? Market gardening. So that is why we are calling this stage as what? Stage of agricultural land use change. They are still practicing agriculture, but the type of agriculture they are practicing has now changed. Because they can see there is more opportunities with respect to such products. These products are also fetching better price in the market. At this time, it is basically what? Can I say at this time, the fringe would start, because now the daily interaction has strengthened. Daily commutation has begun. So milkman is coming every day. Several people selling these products, flowers, fruits, they are coming every day in the city. So this is one very important factor which leads to this kind of change. Now, then comes the third stage. Up to this second stage, village is still what? Rural, more rural in characteristics. But things are changing fast. So next stage is the stage of occupational change. Stage of occupational change. So in stage of occupational change, because now rural people are going more frequently visiting the city. So can I say, as a result of which they would become aware of more opportunities, economic opportunities. They would become aware of more economic opportunities which are there in the cities. So first thing that they would realize is that in the city there are several low-level jobs. Low-level jobs which are fetching what? Regular employment. Low-level jobs which can fetch regular employment. So you can understand the gatekeepers, the malis, several types of such low-level jobs are present. And see, difference between agriculture and these jobs is, agriculture is a seasonal activity. While if you talk about such type of jobs, they are more permanent. Throughout the year, such jobs would be available. So slowly what they would feel that it is better to take up these jobs Because we'll be getting what? Regular employment. So ultimately what will happen? They would start giving up agriculture in favor of these wage employment opportunities. Agriculture in the favor of these wage employment opportunities. Okay? So that is one very important thing which would occur. Ultimately, a time would come where at least one member of every family would be working in the city. At least one member of every family would be working in the city. Okay? In fact, what will happen? There would be some risk-taking villagers as well. Some risk-taking villagers who would have entrepreneurship or entrepreneur spirit and would start their own private ventures. Like for example, you might have seen several pawn shops. Okay? So they would start with such low shops. Some of them would even open bigger shops like vegetable shops. Other type of shops like even textile or various type of such kind of shops would be opened. Okay? Ultimately a situation would be there where, as we said, in the village, the occupation of the villagers is fast changing. They are giving up agriculture altogether. This stage is a very crucial stage. Why? Because here the cultural impact of the city becomes very, very pronounced. So it is a very crucial stage in the transformation. Very crucial stage in the transformation as here the cultural impact of the city becomes very pronounced. Cultural impact of the city becomes highly pronounced. So you can understand number of cultural practices are being taken by the villagers. Like for example, use of urban consumer products. Value given to education. So because of this value given to education, what will happen? You'll be finding that now more number of students are going to the city to study. Even some schools would begin to open in the village itself. Okay, overall, the rural people are like changing their way of thinking is changing. Changing their way of thinking. So you can understand, एक simple सी बात है, suppose there is a gatekeeper. ठीक है? There is a guard or gatekeeper who has got the job. But अब जैसे नॉर्मल सी कॉलोनीज में देखो, बहुत सारे लोग साहब हैं, आ रहे हैं, साहब ने कुछ भी जीवन में उखाड़ा ना हो, बट गेटकीपर को खड़े होकर उनको सैल्यूट मारना पड़ता है. जितनी बार साहब आते हैं, you will find that he will have to salute साहब. So he will realize कि साहब ने ऐसा क्या किया है कि इनको सैल्यूट मारना पड़ रहा है. And ultimately he will realize that maybe because साहब is educated. So then he will realize the value of education. That if I was also educated, maybe I was also getting this type of respect. So definitely what will happen? He don't want the next generation to be like him. And thus what will happen? People will start attaching greater value to education. Okay? So several of the cultural practices in the village begin to totally change. And as we said, it is a very, very important phase of transition, change, which is taking place. Then comes the fourth stage, and the fourth stage is stage of urban land use growth. Stage of urban land use growth. ठीक है, सो अब तक विलेज ज्यादातर बेसिकली क्या था, इट वाज आउटर फ्रिंज और द रूरल फ्रिंज, जो अभी हमने देखा. इट हैड मोर कैरेक्टरिस्टिक ऑफ दैट आउटर और द रूरल फ्रिंज, बिकॉज अर्बन लैंड यूज अभी ग्रो नहीं कर रहा था. बट इन दिस स्टेज व्हाट विल हैपन, बिकॉज द डेली इंटरैक्शंस हैव इंक्रीज्ड, urban folks would also become aware of cheap land opportunities present in the village. With greater interaction, urban folks would also become aware of the cheap land opportunities present in the village. Present in the village. ठीक है, because you can understand now people are giving up agriculture altogether, so the utility of that land is lower, and city dwellers are willing to give good amount of money for that. So ultimately what will happen, farmers would be willing to sell their land to these urban folks. So farmers are willing to sell their land to these urban folks. As a result, what happens? Here, very important role is played by the real estate developers. So what they would do? They would buy cheap land and establish townships. And establish townships, or simply you can say private townships. So what will happen? There would be emergence of urban land use. Emergence of urban land use. ठीक है, so this is one crucial thing that is taking place. अब देख सकते हो, one thing is very clear, as the urban land use grows, what will happen? There would be rich sections of the population who would be residing here. Rich and medium income groups would begin to reside here. So these enclaves, urban enclaves, would be like what? Developed islands in sea of poverty. They would be like developed islands in the sea of poverty. In the initial phase, what will happen? The urban services would be provided privately. In the initial phase, the urban services would be provided privately. So you'll find that there would be private water supply, many times even private electricity supply. ठीक है? But as the population rises, the government is forced to provide urban amenities. ठीक है? So this is another change which is taking place. Finally is the last stage, that is the urban village stage. So in the urban village stage, what has happened? The village has been fully transformed into urban landscape. Fully transformed into urban landscape. Urban landscape. So what has happened? All the agricultural land has been built up. All the agricultural land has been built up. Built So what will happen now? You will be finding that the old village site is still present. Old village site is still present, but it has got transformed. It has got transformed. Now what is the transformation it has taken place? Now the houses would be what? Multi-story houses made up of modern materials, bricks, cements. But what is the characteristic of this village site? It is ill-planned. It has ill-planned haphazard growth, unplanned haphazard growth, and displays all the characteristics of a classic slum. Displays all the characteristics of a classic slum. अब यहाँ पर एक चीज मैं क्लैरिफाई कर देता हूँ. You must be aware that there is difference between slum and squatter settlement. ठीक है? इंडिया में हम wrongly we say many of the झुग्गी झोपड़ी as slum. ठीक है? Globally, it is not the definition of slum. Slum is an area of poor housing which is permanent in nature, where houses have permanent characteristics. How we define them? Urban room density is very high, urban amenities are very, very poor, drainage system is ill-developed, but houses are permanent. Okay? That is why slums are referred to as the settlements of despair. Because they are permanent, they cannot be displaced. On the other hand, there is squatter settlement, जिसको हम इंडिया में बोलते हैं झुग्गी झोपड़ी. ठीक है? So, अगर दिल्ली के हिसाब से डिफरेंशिएट करना है, तो you might have heard about this कच्ची कॉलोनी. So those कच्ची colonies are basically what? They are slums. झुग्गी झोपड़ी is the squatter settlements. These are referred to as the settlements of hope, because they are not permanent and they can be displaced. They can be rehabilitated. Okay? So when here I am using the slum, it is the global definition of slum. It is a permanent type of settlement which is there. You might have seen that if you look into several places in Delhi, उनका नाम होता है गांव. उस जगह को बोलते हैं. ठीक है? जैसे I was living in Mukherjee Nagar, so I lived some months. There was one place, Dhakka Gaon. So that Dhakka Gaon, it was basically what? It was initially a village site, original village site. So what will happen? That area is what? A kind of slum surrounded by very well-developed areas. So this is basically what? It is a urban village stage. It has become what? It has become fully urbanized now. It is now part of the built-up area of the city, and city has formed new rural-urban fringes. Okay? As the city continued to sprawl. So this is basically what we mean by the rural-urban fringe. ठीक है? अब rural-urban fringe में देखें तो what we find that one of the aspects of delimitation is, or rural-urban fringe को how will we delimit the rural-urban fringes. Now, delimiting of the rural-urban fringes is essentially based upon what? It is essentially based upon the criteria of, number of criteria can be chosen. Like, delimit करने के लिए क्या मैं कह सकता हूँ, हमें समझना पड़ेगा what is rural and what is urban. So, many of the characteristics which we take as urban, can I say those characteristics can be used to identify the rural-urban fringes? So like for example, one characteristic which has been seen is population density. Like there were several studies which were done in India, Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad studies. And here Delhi, Bangalore studies were based on the following variables. Population density of this much, if it was displayed in rural areas, they don't have this much of density. Population growth in the preceding decade was 40% or more. Sex ratios, urban areas mein it is lesser. So it is 800 or less. Proportion of workers in non-agricultural activities involved is 50% or more. Because हमने देखा the stage of occupation change. धीरे धीरे क्या होता है, पर्टिकुलरली जैसे जो अर्बन फ्रिंजेस होते हैं वहां पर लोग माइग्रेंट्स आकर के सेटल होने लगते हैं. ठीक है, तो जनरली हमें क्या दिखाई पड़ता है कि वहां पर जो नंबर ऑफ माइग्रेंट जो आएंगे, मेजॉरिटी ऑफ देम वुड बी मेल. So that is one of the reasons you'll be finding that sex ratio would tend to become lower. Then outer limit of city bus service or local train, trade नहीं है ये, train, local train service. ठीक है, अब इस मेथड में देखें तो बहुत सारे कुछ प्रॉब्लम्स हैं. लाइक हम जितने भी क्राइटेरिया चूज किए दे आर नॉट सेटिस्फैक्टरी फ्रॉम कंसेप्चुअल एंगल. लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल in high density areas such as West Bengal, limit of 400 person per square kilometer is unrealistic, because even rural areas have this much of high density. So again there it is not applicable. Sex ratio criteria might not hold true in the northwestern states of India. वहाँ rural areas में भी you will be finding that sex ratio is low. ठीक है. Similarly, in states like Kerala, where sex ratio is very high, both in rural and urban areas, so वहाँ पर again it would be problem in identifying. ठीक है. So again, sex ratio criteria is not very useful. Then use of population growth rate might not hold true in Indian case, as it is generally high in less urbanized regions than urbanized regions. So again, there are several problems in identifying of from these criteria basis. Thus, what is required, only they can give approximate result, and which can be more certain if it is supplemented by actual field surveys. Actual field surveys can be used. There are other methods also which we can be using, like through field surveys you can know about the occupation more correctly, you can know about. Other methods, like for example, in recent times there has been use of satellite imagery. Method of satellite imagery. So if you look into the method of satellite imagery, what we are essentially finding, can I say satellite imagery would be helpful in identifying the limits of inner or urban fringe rather than the outer or the rural fringe. क्योंकि outer rural fringe में physical change अभी तो शुरू नहीं हुआ है, देखा था हमने अभी. Physical change किस part में शुरू हुआ है? It is the inner or the urban fringe. So satellite imagery has its own limitation. It is able to know about the inner or the urban fringe. ठीक है. So again, several methods can be used to talk about or delimit the rural-urban fringe. ठीक है. So that is basically the case of rural-urban fringe. अगर rural-urban fringe के problems लिखने को आएगा तो कैन आई से अभी हमने sprawl के problems देखे थे, same problems यहाँ पर भी होंगे. ठीक है. Similar type of problems would be seen. Now there is another topic of conurbations. इसको भी देख लेते हैं. पहले भी हमने बताया conurbation क्या है. It is the term is used to describe continuously built up area formed by merger of several originally separate sprawling cities. The emphasis is on the continuity of physically built up area, physically built up space. ठीक है. The term was first coined by Patrick Geddes. There are a number of world examples of conurbations. Like one of the largest conurbation is found in the New England region of North America. This is the largest conurbation. In fact, it is becoming very large. Right now, the physical landscape continuity is found between Boston to Washington. Okay, but it is becoming large. सो अगर बनाना है तो फटाफट बनाओ, इंपॉर्टेंट सिटीज जस्ट देख लो. इन द नॉर्थ द लार्जेस्ट सिटी इज पोर्टलैंड. Then there is Boston, New Haven, New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington DC, then as you go, Richmond, Winston, Charlotte, Columbus, Macon, Atlanta, several cities are present. So this is one of the important major conurbation of the largest conurbation of the world. कॉनर्बेशन की कैरेक्टरिस्टिक कहां तक मिलती है? वॉशिंगटन तक. नीचे डेवलप हो रहा है धीरे धीरे. सेकेंड लास्ट मिकॉन, MECON. यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड यहां पर क्यों डेवलप हुआ है. It is a very important industrial cluster of the world. ठीक है. Here on one side there is presence of what? Appalachian. On one side Atlantic. So urbanization can grow in a narrow strip. So this is one area where you find that such type of development has occurred. ठीक है. इसी तरह से एक और एग्जाम्पल उसमें जो दिया हुआ है उसका देखो. सो गोल्डन हॉर्सशू कॉनर्बेशन ऑफ ओंटारियो. So this is basically the golden horseshoe conurbation. So core area and there is extended area of this conurbation. This is the Ontario province of Canada. ठीक है. बट कॉनर्बेशन पेपर 2 में दिया हुआ है, तो पेपर 1 में जनरली चांसेस नहीं है. लास्ट ईयर ही इस साल ही पूछा है कॉनर्बेशन. सो पेपर 2 में भी वैसे चांसेस नहीं दिख रहे हैं. ठीक है. सो दिस इज द गोल्डन शू कॉनर्बेशन. ओके. सो गोल्डन शू हो गया. राइन रूर रीजन ऑफ जर्मनी, अगेन इट इज व्हाट? कॉनर्बेशन. क्वांटो प्लेन्स ऑफ जापान, रानस्टेड रीजन ऑफ यूरोप, सेवरल इफ यू टॉक अबाउट आर प्रेजेंट. इन इंडिया अगर हम देखें, कॉनर्बेशंस आर स्टिल नॉट फाउंड. एज इन इंडिया व्हाट वी फाइंड, स्टिल वी हैवंट रीच्ड दैट लेवल ऑफ अर्बनाइजेशन. ठीक है. Urbanization has picked up pace only in the post-independence period. However, there is development of largest conurbation of the world taking place in India around river Yamuna. ठीक है. So इस conurbation की बात करें तो this is the conurbation starting from Kalka, Chandigarh to Agra. Kalka, Chandigarh, Delhi, Agra conurbation is developing. So here this conurbation development has This is the Yamuna river, you can see, which is going. Actually, this is developing around National Highway 1 इधर से जाता है, and here it is National Highway 2. So it has developed around National Highway 1 and 2. Also there is railway line, Delhi, Jammu Tawi railway line, and National Highway 2 is going towards Jhansi, Agra, that railway line. So you can see north में Kalka is there, nearby Chandigarh, Ambala. So Kalka, Chandigarh, Ambala, Kurukshetra, Panipat, Sonipat, then Delhi. दिल्ली के कुछ सेटेलाइट टाउन्स हैं, गाजियाबाद, मेरठ, देन फरीदाबाद, बल्लभगढ़, होडल, मथुरा एंड आगरा. Mathura and Agra. Okay, so this is the one of the big conurbations which is developing in case of India, and it is expected that once it is fully developed, it would become the largest conurbation of the world. Largest population would be living, highest number of people will be living in this conurbation. So you can understand, ये दिल्ली से आगरा वाला जो stretch है, ये बहुत ज़्यादा strong growth हो रहा है. यमुना एक्सप्रेसवे बन गया. Number of things. So much development has occurred in this zone. There are other places also where there is situation of conurbation which is developing. So again, if you look into here, it is the Hooghly, Kolkata Hooghly conurbation. Material में दिया हुआ है. इस वाले मटेरियल में नहीं, वो दूसरा वाला पिक्चर्स वाला मटेरियल. So you can see there is so many of them. Bajbaj, Shivpur, Kolkata, Triveni, Havada, Belur, Risra, Sodepur, Titagarh, Serampur, Shamamnagar, Kakinara, Hooghly, Naihati. All of these are part of this conurbation, Kolkata Hooghly conurbation. Here also we find that it is result of what? Main attraction, like Delhi conurbation में main attraction कौन है? Delhi है. यहाँ पर main attraction is Kolkata. Here Kolkata Hooghly industrial cluster यहाँ पर है, देखा है हमने पहले ही. Cheap inland waterway, water transportation, Hooghly river is very important. ठीक है. Also other things like presence of Kolkata as a port is another very important factor which is attracting development here. In recent times, Haldia port has developed, which has further boosted growth. ठीक है. So all these factors are responsible for development of this conurbation. वहाँ पर हमने क्या देखा? Delhi is the main hub. Also others which have emerged like Chandigarh, Agra, Mathura, several industrial cities are present. Transportation lines in the form of what? Transportation lines in the form of national highway and railway, both. Third, this area has presence of water, Yamuna river, again boosting industrial growth. Very clearly there is very high demand. Okay, so all those factors are responsible for the growth of that conurbation. There are some areas which had the potential to grow as conurbation, but it is unfortunate that the geographical conditions would not allow. Like Mumbai, Pune. Mumbai Pune has the potential to become conurbation, but at the present level of technology we cannot develop cities in the Western Ghats, which is separating them. So again, it would not develop into conurbation. Physically built up continuity would not be developing. Same, there is Bangalore-Mysuru stretch. In Bangalore-Mysuru stretch, again you will be finding same thing. Here what is the issue? It is the plateau region where cities would not be fully developed in the entire stretch, undulating terrain. Okay, so again, although there are all the necessary characteristics of development of conurbation, except the physiography. Okay, so that is basically the case of conurbation. As India's urbanization is accelerating, we can expect that conurbations would be becoming characteristics of Indian urbanization process as well. Conurbations generally develop in the 4th and 5th stage of development, demographic transition development. Okay? So that is basically the case of this conurbation. सेटेलाइट टाउन भी बता ही देता हूं. सेटेलाइट टाउन बहुत इजी है. देखो, देयर आर टू कंसेप्ट्स विच शुड नॉट बी कंफ्यूज्ड विथ ईच अदर. Satellite towns are direct product of what? Industrialization, and their development intensified after the First World War. The concept has been derived from the idea of garden cities. Garden cities, these were ancillary suburbs surrounding the mega cities of Europe. ठीक है, so mega cities जो यूरोप की थी, there were several suburbs where the workers who were working in these cities were living. ठीक है, so that means very important feature of satellite towns क्या होगा? It is residential characteristics. So satellite towns mainly developed as what? Residential towns. Residential towns. Satellite towns would display what? Suppose this is the main city which is present. So satellite towns would display what? They would display hub and spoke characteristics. Hub and spoke characteristics. That means there would be development of satellite towns when they are connected with the main city through efficient transportation systems. Efficient transportation systems. ठीक है? Now very important thing is, अभी हमने देखा था, in the city region there can be presence of several inner and outer ring towns. देखा था अभी हमने. So there would be presence of several inner and outer ring towns. So very important characteristic of satellite towns is, satellite towns have their independent existence initially or originally. So that means satellite towns कौन से towns बनेंगे जिनका खुद का potential का growth high है, growth potential is high. ठीक है, so these are those towns who have their own existence. There would be some kind of center, some kind of important city, and their own potential of growth is higher. Now, when they would become satellite towns, they would acquire the characteristic of satellite towns as they become connected, well connected with the main city. Okay? As they become well connected with the main city, they would become satellite towns. So already उनका potential था growth का. Now when they are well connected with the main city, what will happen with their growth? It would accelerate. Thus their growth would be accelerating. ठीक है? So this is the main characteristic of satellite town. Now you'll find that satellite towns in recent times have also accommodated several functionalities. They've also accommodated several functionalities like Greater Noida, like for example if you talk about Gurgaon, etc. So many functionalities have grown there in the satellite towns. But despite this rise of functionalities, it is important to understand that satellite towns are by nature residential towns. By nature residential towns. ठीक है? You tell me, if I say, is it true or false that the significance of satellite towns has increased in India? Why it is true? Can I say because of the top heavy urbanization India has experienced? India is experiencing what? That some of the cities are growing at very fast pace. And it is expected that this is not going to change too much in the future. That means what we have to do, we'll have to accommodate new number of migrants who are coming. We'll have to accommodate them in a better manner. More hub and spoke system we have to develop so that the concentration in the main city is what? It is lower. So satellite towns, what they do, they relieve the main city of the population pressure. Okay? So very clearly in India, if you talk about the significance of the satellite towns has very much increased. Now देखो, अब यहाँ पर satellite town is, जो हमने basic बात बोली, it is a residential town, which can have some commercial activities, but it is by nature residential. The satellite towns is different from edge cities. Edge cities. Edge cities क्या होती हैं? These are basically functional cities. Essentially functional cities. इनका definition ही यही कहता है. Soja or E. Soja has found that, given definition of this, that these are those cities where the number of jobs are greater than the number of beds. Number of beds. That means these are mainly what? Functional towns. Towns associated with functionalities. So satellite towns कैसे थे? They were residential towns. ठीक है? Up to this point, we find that edge cities have mostly grown in US. So it is a typical US phenomenon. ठीक है? So such kind of edge cities have, it is a typical USA phenomena. So here these edge cities have grown with which type of cities? The exopolises, which are growing. And here they have grown at the junction of important freeways. Important freeways. वहां पर हाईवेज को फ्रीवेज बोलते हैं. junction of the important freeways. Very important characteristic of the H cities we find is that they are essentially outgrowths which have grown with private, or in other words, real estate investments. Real estate investment. You can understand that Silicon Valley was essentially initially what? It was an H city. Silicon Valley of Los Angeles, it is H city of Los Angeles. ठीक है? So this is the characteristic of the H cities, which is different from satellite towns. तो दोनों में confuse नहीं करना है. Satellite towns में commercial activities हो सकती हैं, होंगी ही, but it is a residential town. When it comes to H cities, they are specialized in functional activities. ठीक है? So that is the characteristic of the H cities which are there. So we'll stop for today. Now, एक दो बातें करते हैं. अब हमारे पास जो बचा हुआ सिलेबस है, एक सबसे बड़ा है जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी. दूसरा, क्योंकि अब इसमें हमें 2-3 घंटे लगेंगे, ये खत्म हो जाएगा. दूसरा जो हमारे पास बचा हुआ है, देयर इज बायोजोग्राफी, environmental geography and oceanography. ठीक है, ये 3 टॉपिक्स बचे हुए हैं. अब मेरे पास चॉइस है. एक बात तय है कि द टारगेट वी हैव मेड 8th of March, we won't be able to finish by this target. ठीक है, ये बहुत श्योर है. So either I extend 1 week, which is not, I don't think it is beneficial now. ठीक है? So what we can do is, इनमें से कोई एक प्री के बाद 1 वीक की क्लासेस रख करके उसे फिनिश कर सकते हैं. ठीक है? I was thinking that let us finish this after prelims because number of reasons. One, pre there is no utility prelims में. One. Second, there are a number of people who are not coming. This is a topic which is highly technical. ठीक है? दिमाग के घोड़े खुल जाते हैं. So again, they would be missing out. After prelims, they can attend the classes. So इसको हम प्री के बाद कर लेंगे. 1 week लगेगा इसको खत्म करने में. This, if we take up now, it has advantage. बिकॉज बहुत से टॉपिक्स जो हम इसमें पढ़ने वाले हैं, बायोम्स एटसेट्रा, दे आर वेरी वेरी यूजफुल फॉर प्रीलिम्स डायरेक्टली. ठीक है? एनवायरमेंट, ज्योग्राफी, ओशनोग्राफी, नंबर ऑफ सच, दीज आर द फिजिकल ज्योग्राफी क्वेश्चन. सबसे ज़्यादा कहाँ से आते हैं? क्लाइमेटोलॉजी और दीज आर द टॉपिक्स. सो दैट मीन्स अगर हम इस टॉपिक्स को पढ़ रहे होंगे, द प्रेशर वुड बी ऑल्सो लेस बिकॉज वी आर ऑल्सो डायरेक्टली स्टडिंग फॉर प्रीलिम्स. ठीक है? सो दोनों काम हो जाएगा. मेंस का भी प्रिपरेशन हो जाएगा, प्रीलिम्स का भी प्रिपरेशन हो जाएगा. सो आई थिंक दैट नेक्स्ट, इसके बाद वी स्टार्ट विद बायोजोग्राफी. दैट वुड बी मोर यूजफुल फॉर अस. ठीक है? ओके. अब हमारी क्लास, नेक्स्ट क्लास मंडे को होगी, सेम टाइम. सो मंडे टू प्रोबेबली सैटरडे या संडे देखते हैं. ठीक है? So we'll stop for today.